Ah, what a lovely sight, seeing you all gathered here. Now we are all here for two things, delicious tea and spooky stories. So to begin, I will bring out tonight's beverage, a pumpkin-infused chai tea, which should pair wonderfully with a bit of chilling tales. Now, who was ready to... what is happening to me?
Oh, hey guys, it's me again, Natural Wizard. Welcome back to my channel. Today we are revisiting r/LetsNotMeet. Indeed, that means more spooky stories. So perhaps bundle up in a warm blanket and maybe grab a hot cup of tea, and let's begin. This first story is called The Weird Noises. So a little context. I recently moved out and live by myself for the first time. I live in a trailer because it's really cheap, but the area is a little on the sketchy side. I've been here for a month, and nothing too strange has happened. I'll also add that I'm a bit of a dummy. This story. Ever since I moved in, I keep hearing strange sounds around my house, like someone creeping around the not-so-thick walls of the trailer. There are a lot of stray cats around this area, so I've pretty much come to ignore them, chalking it up to the cats wandering around. Lately, I keep hearing sounds near the bathroom window. It almost sounds like someone dragging a stick along the side of the wall outside. I have blackout curtains on every window and the blinds always closed, but the bathroom only has a sheer white curtain, and the window is that modded, textured glass that just gives a mosaic view if you look in. I'm equal parts dumb and cowardly, so I never peep out my windows when I hear these weird noises. About a week ago, someone started banging on my door, and this was like banging frantically. This is where me being a dummy factors in. I debate answering the door, but then the banging suddenly stops. My stupid curiosity gets the better of me, and I open the door and see a skinny man in dark clothes. It's 7 p.m. and the sun is almost completely set, so I can't make out his features. He's just standing there, turned back, looking at me. I ask, "Did you need something?" He stared in my direction for maybe a solid 10 seconds, and then just walked a few unsteady steps away. Then he turned back and looked at me and pointed up at the sky wordlessly. Then he turned his head up at the sky and stared up for a while. Then he gave me one last look, turned away, and meandered unsteadily down the unlit street. I closed and locked my door, confused about the encounter. I had continued hearing the weird sounds outside my house, and actually started trying to glimpse through the sides of the curtains to find the cause, but still not courageous enough to actually draw them back and look right out. Just about an hour ago, I heard the strange noise again in my bathroom, and then listened to it slowly travel to my bedroom window. My bathroom is connected to my room. The sound abruptly stopped for a time, then I heard it very loudly scrape against the wall back to the bathroom, and it was gone again. It's actually starting to freak me out a little, but of course, it could just be the cats, and I could be overreacting. Strange man who I saw outside my house who might be making weird noises around my house, let's not meet. Ooh, that's a little bizarre. I think there's only one true, solid explanation for this. Aliens. But seriously, that's really weird and creepy, and I wouldn't know how to explain it. Anyway, on to the next story. This one is called Guy Covered in Blood. One sunny afternoon, I was waiting for the bus next to this woman, and this guy crawls out of the bushes next to the stop and stands between us. I've lived in the city long enough that homeless people crawling out of random places doesn't faze me, so I don't pay any attention to him. The other woman, however, just starts walking away really fast. It sounded like she was almost running. At the time, I assumed she was probably new to the city and not used to homeless people or something like that. I don't really look at him until he asks me how long until the next bus. When I turn to tell him 2 minutes, I see that his oversized white-collared shirt is covered in what looks like dried blood. It's splattered all over the front and sleeves, but there is none on his face or jeans. There is also fresh blood dripping from a neck wound onto his collar. He doesn't look at me at all. He thanks me while continuing to blankly look ahead across the street. I keep staring at him, but he doesn't seem to notice. When the bus gets there, I let him board first because I don't want my back to him. He tries to board and the driver stops him before he can pay. The driver recognizes him and says his name, I think, telling him that he knows he can't board the bus dressed like that. The guy tries to bargain with the driver, but the driver just keeps saying no. Eventually the guy gives up and goes back into the bushes. I board the bus and go to work. I never saw the blood-covered man again. Yeah. Man covered in blood casually trying to board a bus? That's a bit creepy, and I would definitely keep my distance. I would probably also have the same questions as anyone else who witnessed that. Like, where did that dried blood come from? Or, why is your neck bleeding? But either way, I think it would be best to just avoid that guy altogether. Anyway, let's move on to the next story. This one is called Disappearing Man in the Woods. This odd memory of mine I've been thinking about a lot because of the recent news of the Delphi murders, as the man I'm talking about looked similar to the first sketch, but this was 20 years ago and that sketch is now irrelevant. When I was 12, I lived in Flagstaff, Arizona. If you're not familiar with this part of Arizona, it's not what you think of when you think of Arizona. It's a ponderosa pine forest with mountains, and it snows in the winter. Anyway, across the street from my home was an entrance to some woods with paths. As my parents worked, and I was the first one home after school, it was my responsibility to walk the dog. Usually, I would take him just inside the woods entrance, so I wouldn't have to pick up his crap out of the rocks that people out west cover their yards with. Usually, I was too scared to go into the actual woods, even with my dog, because he was stronger than me and didn't listen to me well when we were outside. There were other reasons I didn't like the woods: wolves, pack of wild dogs, sometimes cattle, and of course, I thought it was haunted. But this day, I guess I felt adventurous and took him on a walk into the woods. We went pretty deep that day, and didn't see another soul because it was about 3 p.m. and people were at work. Neighborhood kids didn't really hang out back there either. Now my dog was excited by anything that moved and always wanted to greet another person, cat or dog. But this day, on the way back, I remember him being steadfast, still pulling me along on the way back home, ignoring squirrels and trees blowing in the wind. Then, out of nowhere, a man appeared on the trail in front of me. Now when I say out of nowhere, that's exactly what I mean. The woods there are not dense, and usually you can see people from far away enough that they don't surprise you. The man was dressed head to toe in brown and tan colors, and gave a weak hey, and did not make eye contact. The way he was dressed struck me because everything but the treetops was brown, as there was a drought at the time. As he passed, I took a few more steps and I turned around because he made me uneasy, and he's now behind me, but he was gone. I could see probably 50 feet of trail behind me. There's no reason I shouldn't be able to see him still. My kid brain started going, maybe he's a ghost. No, he must be hiding. There's no way I wouldn't be able to see him immediately after passing each other. Maybe he was hiding in front of me before he came out of nowhere. Maybe that's why he's wearing all brown, to blend in. Dog didn't want to greet him like everyone else in the world. It didn't take long for my dog and I to take off running, and ran all the way home. Thank God I had my goofy dog, because he was pretty aloof but also protective. For all I know, maybe Disappearing Woods Man watched me take my dog out there every day, and saw me wander in that day. I know I let my dog crap in the yard for a few months afterwards. Well, that would certainly deter me from ever going into the woods again. But I think I know how to explain this phenomenon. Aliens. But for real though, if anything like that actually happened to me, I would probably just chalk it up to being a ghost or something. Or an alien. But anyway, let's move on to the next post. This next one is called Creep in the Mountains. One time I was driving through the mountains on my way home from work. It was already getting dark. Suddenly, after a curve, I saw a man in the middle of the road, standing still. His long black hair covered his face. He wasn't moving. He looked dirty. It gave me the chills. I stopped the car right in front of him, hyperventilating. He didn't seem to care. I noticed he was barefoot. He just kept staring in silence. After a while, he calmly approached my window. I was stupid enough to lower it, and he started babbling strange noises difficult to understand. I soon freaked out, but he didn't look harmed or in danger, so I decided to get the hell out of there. I started the engine again and was slowly moving away when he, out of nowhere, jumped onto the car and started shouting loudly and laughing. I almost had a heart attack at that point. I am a petite young woman, and if things had turned ugly, I wouldn't have stood a chance. I accelerated and he eventually fell off and I got home safely. By the time I opened the door of my house, my body was still shaking. I'm Spanish. These things don't happen here, ever. Later, I was told by my neighbors that he once was a psychiatrist. He lost his mind years ago, and since wanders around the mountains. He is often just aside the road at any given time and just stands there, for hours, dirty and spooky as hell. He has a brother that looks after him and pays his bills and whatever. Creep in the mountains, maybe you are harmless, get yourself some shoes, cut your hair, and let's not ever meet again. Okay, if I were to encounter some creepy as hell person standing in the road like that, I sure as hell would not stop my car next to him. I would just steer around him and keep on cruising. I do not have time for that level of crazy. Well, I think I'm gonna end this video here. I hope you all have enjoyed this episode of r/LetsNotMeet, and I also hope that none of you got too startled by these spooky stories. Also, if any of you have your own creepy or spooky stories, I'd love to hear them. So if you want, you can leave them down in the comments, or send them to me in the email I have in the description. But yeah, thank you guys so much for watching and spending some time with me, and as always,
don't forget your tea before you go.